right, well, this time is upon us. Welcome all. Raise this. Board members, if you can turn your cameras on, we're gonna get started now. I'm gonna try to make sure everyone is here that I can see. All right, good evening. My name is Ghian Foreman. I'm the president of the Chicago Police Board. I am calling the board's January 21st public meeting to order. To protect the public's health in response to the COVID-19 outbreak and as permitted by Governor Pritzker's executive orders 2020-07 and 2021-01, this meeting is taking place remotely. This meeting is open to the public via audio conference and is being carried live by CAN TV. Those participating by phone are on mute in order to reduce background noise and disruptions. We have a court reporter making a transcript of this meeting. I will begin by taking attendance so it is clear who is participating. Please say here after I read your name. Police Board Vice President Paula Wolf.
Here.
Police Board Member Matthew Crowell.
Here.
Board Member Michael Eady.
Here.
Board Member Steve Flores.
Here.
Board Member Jorge Montes.
Here.
Board Member John O'Malley.
Here.
Board Member Rhoda Sweeney. I'll check back on Judge.
Here.
All
Here.
right, wonderful. And Board Member Andrea Zopp.
Here.
Superintendent of Police David Brown.
Here.
Chief Administrator of COPA Sydney Roberts.
Here.
Deputy Inspector General for Public Safety Deborah Witzberg.
Here.
Chief of CPD's Bureau of Internal Affairs Karen Konow.
Here.
Assistant General Counsel to the Superintendent Scott Spears.
Here.
Chief of Chicago Police Department's Office of Operations Brian McDermott.
Here.
Chief of Chicago Police Department's Bureau of Detectives Brendan Dinahan.
Here.
And Executive Director of the Police Board Max Caprone.
Here.
We will now proceed to the meetings on the agenda. We will have time at the end of the meeting for public comments. Once again, those participating by phone are currently on mute in order to reduce background noise and disruptions. When we get to the public comment portion of the meeting, we will unmute each speaker. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the board's December 17th regular public meeting?
This is Paula Wolf. I make the motion to approve the minutes.
Michael Eady, second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. The schedule of the police board's monthly public meetings for 2021 has been set and is available on the board's website, chicagopoliceboard.org. The next regular public meeting will be held Thursday, February 18th at 7:30 p.m. Whether this will be an in-person meeting or a remote meeting will be determined closer to the date of the meeting. Is there a motion to close a series of executive sessions for the purposes of considering personnel matters and litigation as authorized by sections 2C, 1, 3, 4, and 11 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act?
This is Paula. I so move.
Michael Eady, second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion passes. A report of the disciplinary actions taken by the board during the previous month has been made available on the board's website. There are 2 disciplinary matters to announce this evening. Board members O'Malley and Zopp will make these announcements. John O'Malley.
Thank you, President Foreman. Pursuant to Section 2-78-130 of the Municipal Code of Chicago, I considered one matter on which the Chief Administrator of the Civilian Office of Police Accountability and the Superintendent of Police did not agree regarding the discipline of 2 police officers. In request for review numbers 21-01 and 21-02, Chief Administrator Roberts recommended that police officers Anthony Spicuzza and Robert Garduno be suspended for 30 days for handcuffing a juvenile for an excessive amount of time. Superintendent Brown recommended these allegations be classified as exonerated. After considering this matter, it is my opinion that the superintendent met the burden of overcoming the chief administrator's recommendations for discipline. A copy of the written opinion will be posted on the board's website as required by the municipal code.
Thank you. Board members out.
Thank you, Ghian. Pursuant to Section 2-78-130 of the Municipal Code of Chicago, I considered one matter in which the Chief Administrator of the Civilian Office of Police Accountability and the Superintendent of Police did not agree regarding the discipline of a police officer. In request for review number 21-03, Chief Administrator Roberts recommended that Police Officer Cedric Taylor be suspended for 180 days for using excessive force during an arrest. Superintendent Brown disagreed with certain findings and recommended a 10-day suspension. After considering this matter, it is my opinion that the superintendent met the burden of overcoming the chief administrator's recommendation for discipline. A copy of the written opinion will be posted on the board's website as required by the municipal code.
Thank you. The recent incident concerning Anjanette Young has brought renewed focus on police accountability. While I will not comment on the specific situation because a disciplinary case may come before the board and it would be inappropriate to comment on it until the board reviews the evidence, the public's reaction to the search has highlighted the concern that many have about the accountability process. The board has, over recent months, intentionally used our monthly public meetings to shine light on the accountability process. In October, we invited the independent monitor overseeing the consent decree to present to our board the elements of the consent decree and emphasize its importance to improving the accountability process. Last month, Deputy Inspector General for Public Safety described the report on one element of the accountability process that she has just released. Tonight, the board has decided that it would be appropriate to make a statement about our role in the accountability process and some steps that we are taking to address the concerns that we have. The police board is one of 4 entities in the accountability process. Complaints against Chicago police officers can be filed with the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, or COPA, the Police Department, or the Office of the Inspector General, the OIG. Most complaints are investigated either by COPA or the Police Department's Bureau of Internal Affairs. In addition, the OIG can institute a review on its own and issue a separate report on its investigation. The police board is sent the most serious cases, those in which there's a recommendation to discharge an officer from the Chicago Police Department. Also, when there's a disagreement about discipline between COPA and the superintendent, the case is sent to one board member of the police board to resolve the disagreement, as you recently heard 2 cases tonight. All discharge cases filed with the board are assigned a hearing officer to hold an administrative hearing. The entire video and the transcript of the hearing must be watched and read by each member of the board. The board members then meet and discuss the case. The board's decision is announced at our monthly meeting, and a written decision explaining the reasoning of the board is published on our website. A short video explaining this process is available on the police board's website, both in English and in Spanish. The board, COPA, and the OIG are now required by the consent decree to meet quarterly to discuss important issues on accountability process and to make recommendations to the police department and city council about how to improve the process. During recent meetings, we have identified 3 important issues. First, the investigations of complaints take too long to be resolved. The board has mentioned in its decisions during the last several years that investigations are taking too long to get resolved. It can be frustrating for officers who are charged, for those filing complaints, and for the members of the public whose confidence in the accountability process is threatened by these delays. The board has met with COPA, the police department staff in charge of investigations, and the Office of the Corporation Counsel in the Mayor's Office to try to ascertain why the investigations take so long and to express our interest in getting them resolved more quickly. We do not feel that enough progress has been made, even after those meetings. The board then requested that when a case is sent to us, it includes a timeline to indicate how long it took COPA, CPD, and the Corporation Counsel's Office to process the case. We make these timelines public. The board also publishes on its website the record of the cases and what the history of the timing is. Sometimes, for example, there's a court case that takes precedence over the case moving to the board. The second issue we have identified is that there recently have been significant disagreements between COPA and CPD as to whether searches and seizures by police officers have violated the Fourth Amendment and department policy. Over the last 2 years, more than a dozen such disagreements have been referred to a police board member to resolve. The third issue is a recent report from the OIG highlighted the requirement that the complaint include an affidavit from the complainant causes many investigations to not be completed. The OIG report indicated that there is a process to override the affidavit requirement, which is used far too infrequently. While the board, as I have mentioned, is only one player in the accountability process and is at the end of the process, we are impatient to address these issues and others. To do this, last summer in the wake of the George Floyd murder, the board engaged a law firm, pro bono, to research how to address these issues and others in the accountability process. The firm is planning to deliver a report by the summer of 2021. At that time, we will exercise the power vested in the board by the city ordinance, which states, quote, "The board, in its discretion, shall have the authority to make recommendations to the superintendent of police and to the chairman of the City Council Committee on Public Safety concerning revisions in policy and operating procedures to increase the efficiency of the Department of Police," end quote, as well as the board's authority to adopt rules and regulations for the governance of the police department. We will make recommendations to CPD and alderman and chair of the Public Safety Committee of the City Council, Taliaferro, to improve the accountability process. We look forward to sharing our recommendations for change at our public meetings and to receive feedback from the public and all stakeholders in the accountability process. Give me one moment. The board has also conducted a search for new hearing officers to conduct over police disciplinary hearings. We received 26 applications for the position. Our selection process included completion of an extensive application form, submission of a writing sample, 2 rounds of interviews with candidates, conversations with candidates' references and others in the legal community, and a background check. As required by the consent decree, we evaluated candidates based on the selection criteria that are published on our website. Is there a motion to designate Michael Panter and April Perry as hearing officers?
This is Paula. I so move.
Michael Eady, second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. To further implement the requirements of the consent decree and to make other changes to the process for handling disciplinary cases, proposed amendments to the board's rules of procedure have been drafted. We made announcements at prior public meetings and we posted drafts on our website for public comment. We plan to consider the final draft at next month's public meeting. As announced at last month's public meeting, proposed amendments to the rule governing suspensions of officers precluded from lawfully carrying a firearm have been drafted. The purpose of these amendments is to permit officers to retain medical coverage so they may address medical issues while they are on desk duty. We posted a draft on our website for public comment and did not receive any comments. Is there a motion to approve the draft amendments to Article 8 of the Rules and Regulations of the Chicago Police Department that has been posted on the board's website as a part of the agenda for this meeting?
This is Paula. I'll make that motion. I think it makes sense for officers to be able to have access to medical attention. At the same time, their FOID card has been suspended.
Michael Eady, I second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. The general orders and other directives issued by the superintendent during the previous month are posted on the police department's website. I'll now ask Superintendent Brown if you would like to give your oral report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have just a few comments if you have time. First, I'd like to start with thanking the members of the Chicago Police Board for your commitment and the time that it requires for you to, and the effort for these virtual meetings. I also want to recognize the members of the public that regularly participate in these public meetings. And I assure you, the public commentaries, that your voices are being heard, and your dedication to making this city better does not go unnoticed. And so tonight I would like to begin by speaking a little bit about front of mind topics that's been on everyone's mind in Chicago, carjackings, which obviously been one of the priorities for our department throughout last year and this year as well. In 2020, there were 1,400 incidents. Our officers arrested over 1,100 people for those incidents of vehicular hijackings. Over the past 5 years, there have been 4,300 vehicular hijacking incidents. And during that 5-year period, Chicago police officers have arrested 10,219 offenders for these crimes. So far this year, 2021, there have been 144 vehicular hijackings, and Chicago police officers have arrested 104 offenders for these crimes. In addition, so far this year, Chicago police officers have recovered 611 guns, and 9 officers have been shot at by offenders. This is on top of 2020's over 11,000 guns recovered and 79 officers shot at, with 10 officers being shot in 2020. So the spike in vehicular carjackings are a regional and national issue that both urban and suburban cities are experiencing across the country. Motives include joyriding and to facilitate anonymity while committing other crimes, including robbery and shootings. Our plan here at CPD is a comprehensive approach. An expanded vehicular hijacking task force, collaboration with other city departments, regional law enforcement collaboration and coordination, working with our suburban departments, a focus on stronger prosecutions with the Cook County Cook County State's Attorney's Office, with judges and our federal law enforcement partners, collaboration with agencies to provide youth interventions of known juvenile offenders, and finally, public engagement to include crime tips and an awareness campaign. One of the troubling aspects of these spikes in vehicular hijackings, besides the victimization, are the number of young people who are involved in vehicular hijacking, with the youngest being 12 years old, with the largest age group of vehicular hijack offenders being between the ages of 15 and 20. We all need to work together in the community to ensure that strong advocates for our youth try and reach our young people to help them make better decisions. There is a better pathway for these young people if we would just be able to convince them to do the right thing. Law enforcement cannot do this part alone. We need everyone, teachers, mentors, coaches, parents, the faith community, and others to help us reach our young people. One of my fears has been for the victims of these vehicular hijackings and the fact that our dedicated, brave officers committing to stopping these carjackers will confront a young person, maybe a 12-year-old, with a gun that leads to an unthinkable tragedy. So again, our officers are dedicated and brave in confronting these armed suspects. They're being shot at. We were arrested last year over 1,100 vehicular hijacking offenders of the 1,400 incidents. And so far this year, 144 vehicular hijackings have occurred, and we've arrested 104 offenders. And I will just close with this. We all want to give our young people a second, third, fourth, fifth chance. We all want to try to reach them and hope that they make better decisions. But our priorities as Chicago Police Department is for the victims. And we are doubling down on our efforts to ensure that there are strong consequences when we prosecute the people we arrest so that we can tamp down the spike in vehicular hijackings. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Superintendent. Chief Roberts.
Sure. Thank you so much. And we've got a lot of people speaking today, so I'll be very, very brief. Just some highlights as we round out 2020. Just for December, we opened approximately 90 new cases for investigation. In the month of December, we brought to conclusion 83 investigations. A little over 20 included sustained findings, 5 in which we've asked for the officer to be terminated from police services. And at the end of 2020, COPA brought to conclusion 1,518 investigations that fell within our jurisdiction. In February, we'll be able to give a highlight to our end of year report for 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. As we move to the public comment section of the meeting, I would like to remind everyone of the board's policy on participation at these meetings. We value your comments and questions on police-related matters, and we will treat you with courtesy and respect. We expect all members of the public to treat everyone at this meeting in a similar manner. Please note that personal attacks and obscene language are strictly prohibited, and that repeated violations of the board's policy may result in the violator not being permitted to participate in future board meetings. Before I call upon each speaker who signed up in advance to speak, each speaker, when I call upon you, I need you to press *6 to unmute yourself. Before I do that, as I stated earlier, we had over 5,000 people sign up to speak today. The majority of the people were speaking in relating to police officer John Catanzara. And so I wanted to make a statement. To date, no charges against John Catanzara has been filed with the police board. Last month, one member of the police board considered a disciplinary matter involving John Catanzara, in which the chief administrator of the Civilian Office of Police Accountability and the superintendent did not agree. The reviewing board member determined that a hearing before the board is necessary to determine whether Officer Catanzara violated any of CPD's rules of conduct. The next step is for charges to be prepared by the Corporation Counsel's office and filed with the board by the superintendent. Once charges are filed with the board, the role of the board, like that of a court of law, is to undertake a thorough review of the case and render a fair, unbiased decision based only on the evidence presented at a hearing. Transparency is a high priority throughout the board's disciplinary process. Once a case is filed with the board, the charges and the date the case is scheduled for a hearing will be posted at our website, chicagopoliceboard.org. All of the board's disciplinary hearings, like trials in court, are open to the public. After the board decides a case, it takes a public vote on the decision where each board member's vote is announced and recorded. Then the board publishes on its website the written findings and decision, which includes a detailed explanations for the reasons for the board's action. I will now call upon those members to speak. In fact, Max, if I could ask you or Jasmine to call, because I'm not sure that I have this list.
Yes, I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
So the first speaker on the list is O'Neill Johnson. And again, please press *6 to unmute yourself.
O'Neill Johnson. Okay, Max, can we go to the second speaker, please?
Yes, the second speaker is Stephen Belstra.
Can we go to the next speaker, please?
Third speaker is attorney Zedric Braden.
Next speaker, please.
Fourth speaker is Eunice Chapman Regis.
If you can press *6. Next speaker, please.
Okay, I believe I saw some of these speakers, so perhaps they're having trouble unmuting. The next speaker, Lori Burns.
Hello?
Yes, Ms. Burns.
Good evening. Hello? Oh, hello?
Okay, okay, Ms. Burns, we'll come back to you. We have Miss Eunice Chapman Reed, I believe.
Okay. Regis, I'm sorry, there was something wrong with my connection. I am so sorry.
No worries.
May I begin?
Yes, please.
Okay. Good evening. I thank you for your past concern to the issues regarding our community. Unfortunately, the problem continues to persist despite the repeated efforts of Everhart 79's Block Club members and our numerous 911 calls. Family Fresh Market, located at 457 East 79th Street, continues to be a haven of illegal drug sales, loitering on the public way outside the store by 10 or more persons who block the sidewalk. They do not practice social distancing nor wear masks as requested by Mayor Lightfoot and Governor Pritzker and numerous health professionals. Inclement weather does not hinder their activity. They still loiter, have illegal drug sales, etc. When police are called and respond, the loiters disperse momentarily only to return later that same day. They flee and hide in the foyer of the multi-unit apartment buildings located at 7905 and 7909 South Everhart. The owner of those buildings has been contacted. He says he'll have the custodian take care of it. However, that individual is complicit in the behavior of these loiterers because he engages in the same activity he's been asked to diffuse. Several tenants in those buildings have moved out of concern for their safety and livelihood and refusal of the custodian to address their complaints regarding suspicious activity, loitering, and drug sales that the tenants witnessed. Recently, a building at the 7900 block of Everhart was purchased and is currently being rehabbed. As I was returning home one afternoon, the new owner asked me what was going on at the store on Cornish 457 East 79th Street. I explained the above issues our block club has been trying to combat for several years. He replied that he thought that was the case because his workers keep going back and forth to that store, coming back smelling of marijuana or acting like they're under influence of something that's not alcoholic. Is there no remedy or relief from this minister? There are many children on our block, and we continue to have our quality of life jeopardized by these miscreants. The 6th District Police efforts have been ineffective. It's winter now. What are we expecting in coming months and warmer weather? Today, with the warm weather, we had to call 911 because of the bigger crowd that congregated there, including men and women. Thank you for your time and have a blessed evening.
Thank you very much. Superintendent, this was Miss Chapman was speaking kind of fast, but basically 79th and Everhart, and we've heard of this before. Would you like to make a comment?
Yes, I certainly would, and I anticipated the 6th District being on point, and I have that leadership here directly, and they were given word that this has been a pervasive issue for some time. And Chief McDermott, would you like to call on the commander, or you got it?
No, I got Commander Ben on her. She'd like to address this for the speaker.
Good evening, everyone. To Ms. Chapman. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Good evening, Ms. Chapman. We were given this information and we are working on this. We do have our CAPS officers doing quality of life missions over here at that store. And we gave the address of 7905 and 09 that will be given to our trouble buildings to take a look at as well. And with licenses, we'll be giving information about the Fresh Mark store.
Great. Thank you very much. Miss Lori Burns, if you can unmute now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. Good evening. Thank you for addressing our concerns. The communication problems raised last month with our 6th District CAPS team haven't been resolved yet, but have been acknowledged. So thank you, Commander Sonorbin, Officer Tatum, and Beverly Williams. Residents look forward to partnering with our new commander and the CAPS community team to support excellent, effective communications and results. Secondly, is there a protocol for carjacking victims and CPD to follow? If so, how is it being communicated? My elderly neighbor was a victim of this terror last Wednesday, January 13th at 1 p.m. The 911 operator said a car would not be sent, and they were instead transferred to a phone number that was never answered. They made an in-person report at the police station, but were not given a follow-up contact to share the security video footage with. Within the last hour, our CAPS officer shared a phone number with me for the vehicle carjacking task force. So when and how will this information be shared with the public so that victims can be empowered and that we are operating with consistency? Lastly, please find that Mr. Catanzaro should be terminated. Chicago and our democracy deserve better. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I see speaker number 3 here, but I can't quite see the name. Zedric, perhaps? Is there a Zedric? All right, we'll pass on that one. We are going to go to Jennifer Edwards. If you can unmute, Miss Edwards.
Good evening, everyone. We are, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yes. We are so pleased that the 3rd and 6th districts are collaborating on their crime fighting efforts. Both of the new commanders and their staff have reached out to community members many times. They have planned a neighborhood walkabout, that's my name for it, for tomorrow, Friday, where many neighbors will be attending. The walkabout is in one of the areas of concern with numerous crime problems. We will be addressing East 75th Street from the 500 block to Cottage Grove, where numerous illegal parties have been reported. Can we call attention to a party reported last night on the 623-624 CAPS beat call? The address is 7533 South Evans. The community person reports numerous calls are constantly made and the police just drive by. We again hope that the collaboration and our reporting will show the need for more police assigned to the 3rd and 6th districts. Also, can you push for COVID-19 vaccines for the essential workers and officers in these districts? They face the general public on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Superintendent, before I call the next speaker, can you comment? This is being viewed on CAN TV. For carjackings, where should someone call? Is it just a regular 911? What is it that people should do specifically, since this is something that we're seeing a lot of right now?
call 911 if you are the victim of a carjacking and report your car stolen immediately. The sooner as that car is put in the system, the best chance we have at catching the offenders. The offenders, once they carjack someone, we found only keep those cars a few hours before they dump them and move on to something else. So we have a short window. So any delay in reporting that to 911 really is makes it more difficult for us to catch the carjacking offender. Secondly, you can always contact your district, either the CAPS office or the front desk of your district to report any kind of suspicious behavior. I would encourage you to attend beat meetings. I would encourage you to become familiar with your DAC chairs so that we could be part of the crime tips and awareness campaign as it relates to carjacking as well. It's not to go to the district if you're carjacked. Call 911 if you're carjacked or your vehicle is stolen otherwise, so that we can capture the offender as soon as possible, but also become part of the crime tip and awareness campaign at your district level.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker, Matthew Brandon.
Good evening, President Foreman, members of the board, Superintendent Brown, command staff, and Chief Roberts. Communities Organized to Win continues its work of bringing police and community together so that we, as partners, can develop strategies and solutions to the issues that plague our communities. No doubt about it, people are afraid. This past summer of public unrest, which led to the reduction of manpower in our police districts, did not go unnoticed. Our communities felt, and rightfully so, frustrated by a lack of response to their calls for service. Recent comments made by the current president of FOP have served notice to our communities that if they, FOP supportive officers, cannot police like they want to, then they won't police. Some of the issues raised this evening support that notice. No cars responding to numerous calls, or cars showing up and just passing by without stopping, or officers getting out of their vehicles. We want you to know that we want to support the police, but we want to support the police who want to serve our communities. If they don't want to be here, get them out. We will not go back to the knees on our necks or the shots in our backs, or I thought it was a gun defense. Policing must change, and we stand ready to work with you to achieve that change. We also acknowledge that we, the communities, have to do our parts. We know it takes two. I want to say to all on this call, I want you to know the recent promotions made by Superintendent Brown have given us a new hope that change is coming. I encourage you all to work with your commanders and CAPS teams, because change can come to your communities too. In our 6th and 3rd police districts, change is real. In the 3rd district, Commander Watson and his staff, along with Sergeant Wilson and her CAPS team, have reached out to us personally. We are updated on initiatives and strategies being developed that will directly confront the issues we bring forward. The same can be said for Commander Ben and her staff, along with Sergeant Hughes and her CAPS team. These leaders also take from their busy schedules to speak directly to members of the.
I'm sorry, I know I'm gonna get in trouble, Mr. Brandon, for muting you, but we had over 5,000 speakers tonight, so we're holding firm to our time limit today. Thank you very much for your comments. I think one of the things, Superintendent, you've heard me say this before, that we certainly tell you when things are not going right, and I think it's important that your team also hears the positive improvements. So thank you very much to your team. Mr. Brand just kind of spoke very specifically about some of those. Next speaker, Brad Redrick. Brad Redrick. If you can press
yes.
Star.
Good evening, and thank you for letting me speak. I'd like to say here to that last speaker. Indeed. Okay, so I want to bring to your attention the community organizing position of the 4th District that has recently been vacated due to retirement by the former organizer, Mr. Antonio Salazar, who did a very fine job before he retired. In the 4th District before, we had no organizer for about 3 years, and it has really yielded pretty tragic results. We're really behind in our organizing and working with the police department, and we need to get that filled. And we've been told that an impediment to that is that there's a freeze on hiring. in the city. The 4th District is a huge district. It also has a sizable Spanish-speaking population as well as the rest. And so, in fact, it needs 2 organizers, but it has no organizer now, and we're not able to position ourselves to help the police department in the ways that the superintendent just expressed, needing to help make connections with the youth and whatnot. So our quality of life in the 4th District is supremely hampered by this vacancy, and we hope that you all will do everything that you can to get that position filled so that we can work and team with the police department to drive down this violence. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you very much. Superintendent, any comment?
Yes, I'll have Chief McDermott, Chief of Patrol, follow up through the board and contact you directly on how we can take care of filling that position. Even if there is a budget for that particular position, there may be some other things we can do. So let Chief McDermott, Chief of Patrol, follow up with you here in the next couple of days.
So Max, if you can make sure to get Chief McDermott, Mr. Redrick's contact information, that would be great.
Will do.
All right, next speaker, Mr. John Perryman. If you could press *6, Mr. Perryman.
Hi, yes. Before my time begins, I'd like a report. Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry. I'd like a report from the superintendent regarding the drug market next to Garfield Park.
Do you want to make your comment, or do you?
I'd like to hear what the superintendent has to say first.
Superintendent?
Sure. Mr. Perriman, I have I believe the Commander 11 District here now, and we have talked about this. Obviously, you know, we've had several police board meetings where you brought these same issues, similar issues up, and we have a new commander there, and I'm going to turn it over to him directly to answer your questions.
All right, good evening, Mr. Perriman. This is Commander McKenzie. We spoke earlier today, and I actually spoke to you last week, and in regards to the conversation about the drug sales on Lake Street by St. Louis, I spoke to the commander of narcotics today, and regarding that the mission, they're doing the mission over there is almost complete, without jeopardizing the mission. That's almost in its final stages. They're waiting right there. They've already identified 20 targets, which they're going to make an arrest, and they're just waiting for approval. And once that is complete, I'll give you a call and inform you of that. Also, in that area, this summer, what we have done to prevent issues over there, we have enforced parking restrictions on Lake Street from Hamlin all the way to Central Park, from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. on Fridays through Monday mornings. Also, 1133 is doing a special attention in that area. Last summer, we had a fixed post on St. Louis and Walnut. What we're going to do is continue our dialogue with the community and collaborate with the community as well. The DCOs are going to engage with the citizens in there. And also, like we said today, you and I, when we spoke, I'm going to personally meet with you next Wednesday, and we're going to actually walk the park like you requested.
Okay, well, thank you. And it's nice to meet a new commander in the 11th. I hope it goes better than the previous commander who ignored this issue. I would like to bring up that last week, I brought this up last April, and so it's a long time ago, almost 9 months now. And the superintendent saying they've thrown a lot of resources. I would say that all the strategies so far have been a complete failure. I went for a walk with my dog the other day, and I was offered drugs. You can't even walk down the street without someone offering you drugs in this area. This is on the edge of a park. We want to use that park for our families, and it's a real problem. So I'm going to let the superintendent know I'm going to keep coming back to these meetings. I'm not giving up on this, and I do expect to see effective strategies. I think a big part of the problem is that the strategies are completely ineffective, and superintendent needs to know that what's going on is not working. And I've said this pretty much every other month for 8 months. and we need to see results soon. And you say you hear our voices. I don't feel heard. You promised me many things. I don't see the results of those promises. So I guess my final ask is that, Mr. Foreman, if it's okay with you, I would like to have a sit down with you and the superintendent in the next week, if that's possible. It doesn't have to be long.
Sure. I'm not too sure what I can do in terms of sit down. I don't develop policing strategies, but if you would like me to join the meeting, I'm more than willing to do so.
Well, Mr. Foreman, I did meet with the superintendent a long time ago, and I talked about specific strategies that work and things that don't work. And I feel like that was completely disregarded. So I would like another ear in the room to help hold everyone in the room accountable.
Okay, I will make myself available. The next speaker is Flora Suttle. If you can press *6, Ms. Suttle. Ms. Suttle? All right, I'll come back to you, Ms. Suttle. I can see that you're on and perhaps you're having a hard time unmuting. Next speaker, June Norfleet. Ms. Norfleet, if you can press *6. All right.
Hello.
Yes, Ms. Suttle. I mean, Ms. Norfleet.
Okay. I know time is short. My point is what I call low-hanging fruit. Good evening, everyone. You know, there are two parts of a tree that have to be carefully tended to, and that is the top, because if you do not prune the top of a tree and the fruit stays up there too long, it gets no light and everything becomes diseased. And the bottom, the low-hanging fruit. Well, last week I took a walk out on 75th Street, and there was a lot of low-hanging fruit out there. There were things that were strewn all over 75th Street, just like litter. There were cars without license plates, vehicles with expired temporary plates. So bleached, they look like blank sheets of paper. These are low-hanging fruits. Stores with windows papered over and obscured, low-hanging fruit. We need to stop the illegal gatherings that are beyond the number of attendees as prescribed by current ordinances. Low-hanging fruit. Our police department can work with auto industry professionals to advance improved vehicle security platforms. Make that a priority. That's a low-hanging fruit. Answering the phone in a positive and professional manner. I understand you're police officers and you work in a hectic environment, but you are still yet professional public servants. Articulate, say your name, your station, and handle the citizen's business. As my neighbor, Ms. Burns, already indicated, that can be a challenge sometimes. These are things that can be done now. These are plums that can be picked. I do want to say that on 75th Street today, when I walked, this is why I know low-hanging fruit can be handled. It was a different place because Commander Watson has already started to imbue a sense of professionalism, committed, dedicated ethic. Thank you very much for doing that, and we look forward to working with you. Don't forget the fruit.
Thank you. Superintendent?
Yeah, I just love her comments, and I'm as excited as I've heard some of the community members say about not just Commander Watson and Commander Ben, but in the 8 months I've been here, I've been able to have the opportunity because of retirements to make several promotions of people who who are very talented and I really have high confidence in, and so I'm looking forward to them engaging more. And our emphasis is on community engagement, quality of life, being responsive, being professional. So, you know, kudos to the last commentator. That's right on point.
Thank you. Next speaker, Krista Noel.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Hi, Kristen.
Hi. I'm a little concerned about that mass shooting that happened with Jason Nightingale and has ended in the death of two women, Marta Torres and let me get her name, Aisha Neville. And there are three women right now fighting for their lives: Shirley Hinton, Virginia McAllister, and Damia Smith, ranging from 15 to 81 years old. I have known for a while that mass shootings were connected to domestic violence, and this was not unusual, right? They say that as the number of victims go up, the more likely it is that the shootings are going to have some connection to domestic violence. Jason Nightingale had a domestic violence charge in Evanston. One of the problems I have with this shooting is not only that he shot 5 women, it's the fact that Jason was able to go from the south side of Chicago to the north side of Chicago in Evanston, where he had a domestic violence charge. So it's almost as if you knew he was coming because he kept going places that he knew, right? It was clear that Jason was going to kill people until somebody killed him. So although I wasn't there and I can't quite be sure that he could have been taken alive, I know that Jason's plan was not to be taken alive, or he wouldn't have shot a woman to death about 5 minutes before he was shot to death. But I do have a problem. I do have a problem with the fact that we have these an increase in violence against women. We have women being shot while they're driving their.
I'm sorry, Miss Noel, with the amount of speakers that we have tonight, I apologize that I had to cut you off. Superintendent, can you speak to some of the domestic violence issues and what CPD is doing to try to address some of that?
This particular shooting case has some domestic violence, but the more prominent underlying issues was mental health, as expressed by Mr. Nightingale's family, that had been spiraling out of control. And these acts of violence were random, and with no notice from anyone that we've become aware of in the preliminary investigation. We'll continue our investigation, but the speaker is correct that there's some domestic violence, but likely mental health issues being the more prominent motives that are behind this.
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier today, we had over 5,000 people sign up to speak, and most of those callers were calling regarding John Catanzara. The next 2 speakers, I've asked if they could take a little bit more time and represent some of the 5,000 people who did sign up to speak. So with the board's permission, I'm going to allow them a couple additional minutes to speak on behalf of the 5,000 people who signed on. So the next speaker is Ahmed Rehab.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Superintendent, and everyone else for this opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is Ahmed Rehab, and I'm the Executive Director of the Council on American Islamic Relations here in Chicago. We are the Chicago office of the largest Muslim civil rights organization in the United States. And I have let our views be known to the public via media appearances on the comments made by Officer John Catanzaro, and I'm here tonight to let them be known to you and to urge you to take action swiftly, specifically calling on Mr. Superintendent Brown to speed up filing charges and bringing them to the desk of the Chicago Police Board so that the process can continue and a hearing can take place. I have respect for the superintendent, but I have no idea why there has been such a delay, and I'd like him to address that and to promise us a time frame in which he can move on these charges. I wanted to make this ask in advance before I got into some of our concerns with Mr. Catanzara in case I ran out of time, and I'll get into that now. As some of you have seen in the media, and I'm sure as you have heard internally, some of these comments are just plain disgusting and prejudiced against large segments of the Muslim community. In some of his social media posts, he has implied that Muslims are savages and that they all deserve a bullet. There are two particular posts, one in which he discusses a crime that was committed in Detroit by one individual who happened to be Muslim, what they call female genital mutilation. It's female circumcision, but it is a violent act and it's illegal, it's a crime, and it's not accepted in our Muslim faith by the great overwhelming majority of Muslims. And he said what he said about her, which I have no problem with and I agree with him on, but his extending his outrage and disparaging all Muslims for the crime of one individual is precisely what defines Islamophobia and bigotry. Imagine if I were to look at the case of somebody in the Catholic Church who committed pedophilia, and I'm calling all Catholics, pedophiles. Or I'm looking at a case of a lynching in the South, which unfortunately still happened, and I'm calling all white Americans racists and murderers. That is precisely that extension. And he tried to backtrack and he tried to focus back on that individual crime, which we agree on, but it's the extension and the extrapolation to a large segment, to use his own words. This is the reason many Americans are weary of a large segment of Muslims. This is the life many want to bring to the country, deny reality all you want. It's that generalization that is at the core of racism and prejudice, and it puts a mark on our backs, and it puts us in danger. And this is a man who walks the streets with a gun and a mandate. And for him to be so misinformed and to be so prejudiced is a problem. He also talks about a case in Afghanistan in which a woman was brutally attacked by a mob, something any sane person, let alone an average Muslim, would condemn. Again, it's that extrapolation to everyone else, picking one crime, sensational situation, and seeming it to be average, making it look average among Muslims, is precisely the problem we have faced since 9/11 in this country, where a terrorist attack happens and suddenly we're all suspect. There's a mark on all of our backs. He's a policeman. He should know better. He has admitted himself that he tends to be easily misinformed when he made these problematic remarks supporting the attack on our nation's capital recently, an attack on our democracy, came out guns blazing, no pun intended, defending this outrageous attack. He later backtracked and said he was misinformed. If he is so easily misinformed, he had the same information you and I had. We all knew what it was. We all had a problem with it from day one. He needed a backlash to backtrack. If he has a problem with gaining information the right way, if he has some cognitive issue, if he has some judgment issue, whether it's on the capital situation or on Muslims or on Mayans, which he asserted, are engaged in human sacrifices and shouldn't come to this country, again, this type of racism and prejudice.
I'm sorry, Mr. Rehab, I had to cut you at that point, gave you the double the 2 minutes. Thank you for your comments. Before I ask the superintendent to respond, I'm going to call the next speaker, Mr. Abdullah Mitchell. Mr. Abdullah Mitchell, if you could press *6.
Good evening. My name is Abdullah Mitchell. I'm the Executive Director of the Council of Islamic Organizations of Greater Chicago. We represent 68 different Muslims organizations in the Greater Chicago area, and many are residents and work in the city of Chicago. The public statement made by Officer John Catanzara is appalling. Calling Muslims savages and deserving a bullet is racist and is an incitement for violence against Muslims. This statement, in our mind, reflects a level of bigotry that cannot be tolerated for any Chicago police officer. So regardless of the circumstances under which he made this statement, for him to use a public forum to express his views encourages violent behavior against Muslims. This is not the behavior we demand of a police officer, and we call on the Chicago Police Department and the superintendent to institute proceedings to terminate Officer Catanzara. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent, before I turn it over for you for any comment, again, just reiterating, at this point in time, the police board have not received any charges yet. Once we receive charges, there will be a hearing. Again, if you go to the police board's website, chicagopoliceboard.org, we have a short video kind of explaining this process. So last month, one member of the public made a recommendation that this case go before the full board. Superintendent will file charges with the board. Once those charges are filed, there'll be a hearing, at which point the board will have a hearing, will review the case, will make a decision, will make that decision publicly. The hearings are open to the public, and we absolutely encourage members of the public to attend, and we can provide the details on how that will be made available in the world of Zoom today. So again, I definitely recommend taking a look at chicagopoliceboard.org, and where we put detailed explanations. So Superintendent, I'll turn it over to you for comment.
Yes, that particular case is in the Department of Law with charges being prepared, and as soon as they're done, they'll be forwarded to the police board. It's not in the superintendent's office, in my office at all. I've made my recommendation, made my comments, and so that case then goes to the Department of Law to prepare charges. Once the charges are prepared, as I mentioned, they'll go to the police board for the rendering of a decision. There are other charges coming through that on Cannon's era that also will go through this similar process. So there's no way to speed up. Department of Law should take the appropriate due process to prepare the charges like they have for other cases, so that there won't be reasons for appeal or anything overturned. So I think it's prudent, in my opinion, to follow the steps as you normally would and not fast track based on anything outside of the facts of the case.
Thank you very much. Our final speaker, Mr. Robert Moore. Mr. Moore, if you can press *6 to unmute one of your phones.
Yeah, Mr. Foreman, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello? Okay,
Yes.
Very good. The only thing I can say very good is that you can hear me. Other than that, this is the January meeting of 2021. A catastrophe has befallen the non-counterfeit version of the rule of law, the, whatever you want to call them, the genocidists, the global plantation owners have seized complete control of the nominal government entities of the United States. It is now time for all people who are not completely incorrigible, who are not willing to accept satanic worship and pedophilia being imposed upon them, to gather together amongst ourselves, make a nationwide chain network, and prepare for the worst, because they are coming for us. Who is they? The minions, the instruments of the global plantation owners. The whole agenda has been for all of these years to set up the basis to get rid of us. Because once we're gone, those of us in whom there's some fear of God and a commitment to keep the commandments, there's nothing between them and total world domination. These dominoes have fallen. It's a disastrous situation. Here's proposed stipulations from Robert J. Moore to the City of Chicago Police Superintendent David Brown. They've been posted. They will be posted as soon as I can get them to JN 21-15 PROTCTR.tripod.com/CPD POLBDMTG PROPSTIP RJM SDB 012121.html. I'm going to try to read as much as these can. I've had numerous interactions with the City of Chicago Police Department, and we got to get this whole thing onto solid ground, which is what? The objectively reasonable reliance interest referenced by the United States Supreme Court in Illinois versus Krull as constituting necessity for the enforcement of any law. It's the enforcement of these malum prohibitum laws that is enslaved.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. So since we had a lot of speakers, and Superintendent, I heard your response about the law department. The board will also, we will reach out to the law department, and we will make sure that we get back and report publicly to members of the public at next month's board meeting where those charges stand. And so we'll take that upon ourselves as well to insert ourselves into the process to ensure that we can get timely information back to members of the public. At this time, all members of the public who signed up in advance to speak who are on the call have been called. Is there a motion to adjourn?
This is Paula. I move to adjourn.
Michael Eady, second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 The motion passes. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for your attendance and your participation. Please stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye all.